Good morning, and welcome to the University of Maryland. Members of the audience, please take note of the exit locations. In the case of an emergency, please walk, do not run to your nearest exit. Please take this opportunity to turn off all phones and any other electronic devices. Thank you for your cooperation. Please rise for the processional and remain standing until our degree candidates and platform party take their seats. Presiding over today's ceremony, Dean of the Philip Merrill College of Journalism, Rafael Lorente.
Graduates of the class of 2023, of December 2023 and May 2024, honored guests, faculty and staff, parents and friends, welcome to the Philip Merrill College of Journalism commencement ceremony. My colleagues and I are proud to honor the women and men who have completed the requirements for degrees of Doctor of Philosophy and Journalism Studies, Master of Journalism, Master of Arts in Journalism, Certificate in Multimedia Journalism, and Bachelor of Arts in Journalism. Before I introduce the platform party, I'd like to set the stage for today. Commencement celebrates the achievement of a lifetime for Merrill Terps. Our university policies do not allow for disruption of any university event, including commencement. If you wish to engage in protests, demonstrations, or other such expressive activities, you must abide by university policy and do so in the designated areas outside of the venue at Chapel Field. Thank you for making this day special for our graduating Terps. Now let me introduce to you the members of the platform party. I ask the audience to please hold your applause until I have completed the introductions. Thank you. First, we have today's commencement speaker, Amna Nawaz, co-anchor of the PBS NewsHour. Associate Dean for Academic Affairs and Director of Master's Programs, Alexander Piles. Assistant Dean for Undergraduate Studies, Josh Madden. Today's commencement speaker, Kirsten Hacker. Principal Lecturer, Director of Assessments and Graduate Multimedia Certificate Program Director, Christine Harvey. Associate Professor, Ira Chinoy. Associate Dean and Professor, Linda Steiner. Doctoral Candidate, Robin Sundaramurthy. Doctoral Candidate, Sahana Nasrin. Doctoral Candidate, Dinfin Malupi. Associate Dean, Professor, and Director of Merrill's Doctoral Program, Sarah Oates. Doctoral Candidate, Sarah Browning. Doctoral Candidate, Frankie Ho-Chun Wong. Professor Susan Muller. And Doctoral Candidate, Bobby Foster. In the second row, we have Richard Eaton Chair of Broadcast Journalism and Professor Mark Feldstein. Assistant Professor Daniel Trielli. Associate Professor Chris Hansen. Assistant Professor Christoph Mergerson. Associate Professor Ronald Yaros. Associate Professor Rob Wells. Director of our Howard Center for Investigative Journalism, Kathy Best. George Solomon, Endowed Chair in Sports Journalism and Director of the Shirley Povich Center for Sports Journalism, Professor of the Practice, Mark Hyman. Knight Chair in Public Affairs Journalism, Professor Dana Priest. Eleanor Merrill Scholar on the Future of Journalism and Professor of the Practice, Tom Rosenstiel. Director of our Capital News Service Annapolis Bureau, Christy Parsons. Director of our Capital News Service Broadcast Bureau, Mel Coffey. In the third row, Chief Development Officer and Assistant Dean for External Relations, Katie Awney. Managing Director of Capital News Service, Marty Kaiser. Lecturer and Director of our local news network, Jerry Zaremski. Director of our Capital News Service Washington, D.C. Bureau, Jim Carroll. Director of our Capital News Service Audience Engagement Bureau, Stacy Decker. Adjunct Lecturer Clarence Williams. Professor of the Practice, Kevin Blackistone. Lecturer Tom Batag. Lecturer in Data and Computational Journalism, Derek Willis. Lecturer Elena Delfino Copania. Senior Lecturer Josh Davidsburg. And in the last row, Adjunct Lecturer Michaela Newton. Adjunct Lecturer Brandon Benavides. Adjunct Lecturer Alex Flum. Adjunct Lecturer Joe Yasharoff. Adjunct Lecturer Marilee Cox. Adjunct Lecturer Ann Rosen. And Broadcast Production Lecturer Nathan Stevens is in charge of our live streaming of the ceremony. And serving as the announcer, our alum and coordinator of our undergraduate recruitment, Brendan Hartlove. Please be seated. We are delighted to have so many family members and friends here for today's commencement. Our graduates have worked hard and have made us proud. They've produced outstanding award winning journalism, earned jobs in newsrooms and other fields across the country, and already begun to reshape journalism for a better, more equitable future. Most importantly, they've taken care of each other along the way. Thank you for joining us today as we celebrate their accomplishments. We are being live streamed this morning. This program will be available on our website and YouTube page. Every year, we choose a distinguished journalist to hear from at commencement. I am honored to introduce Amna Nawaz. Amna Nawaz has been the co-anchor of the PBS NewsHour since 2023. Since joining the NewsHour in 2018, she has reported from the White House, across the country, and across the world. She can often be found telling important stories that other news outlets barely cover or ignore entirely. And she does it in the in-depth, balanced, and thoughtful manner that is the hallmark of the NewsHour. Amna has been part of teams that have won 4 Peabodys, among the most prestigious awards in journalism. She has won for coverage of the gun violence epidemic in America, for coverage of the attack on the US Capitol, for a documentary examining global plastic pollution, and this year for coverage of the war between Israel and Hamas. Amna was previously an anchor and correspondent at ABC News and a foreign correspondent and Islamabad bureau chief at NBC News. She is the first generation American daughter of Pakistani parents, born and raised in Virginia. She earned a bachelor's degree from the University of Pennsylvania, where she captained the varsity field hockey team and studied abroad at the University of Zimbabwe. She later earned her master's degree from the London School of Economics. Amna is also a secret Terp, regularly joining her family for women's and men's basketball games here on campus. Welcome to her husband, Paul Wardell, and one of her children who are here today. Please join me in welcoming Amna Nawaz.
Good morning, everyone. Dean Lorente, esteemed faculty, guests, family, friends, and grads. Thank you for inviting me here to speak today. I'm here to talk about journalism, sure, and what you all face ahead to hopefully inspire you, maybe possibly scare you a little bit too. But first, as with any good graduation speech, I want to begin with a love story. Years ago, as a young producer at NBC News, I was set up on a date by a friend. That friend was a fellow journalist. He said, I just had to meet this new guy who just started working at his news network. I met that guy. We hit it off. That guy took my number. He actually called the next day. We've now been married for 14 years. So, yes, it worked out. That guy was Paul Wardell, my husband sitting right here. That guy is father to our 2 wonderful girls, one of whom, Lena, is here with us today. And that guy happens to be a Merrill grad, class of 2002. It was this place that first inspired him to want to know more about the world around him. This place that led him to an incredible career here and abroad with the BBC, with Al Jazeera English and the New York Times. And it was this place that eventually led him to me. So journalism has given me a lot. The greatest gift of all is the one that I never expected it would give me. So I want to say thank you to Merrill for giving me the gift of Paul. Now, while I hope journalism leads you to the love of your life, it may not. I want you to be prepared for that. But here's what you can expect on this remarkable journey on which you're about to set off. No 2 days will ever be the same. No job will ever be what you expect it to be. And as with the rest of life, showing up is about 75 to 80% of doing this right. Journalism is not work meant to be done at a safe distance. You have got to show up. You have got to bring your whole self to this work. Bring all of your ideas, good and bad. And many of your ideas at first will be bad. Just know that. That's okay. That's how you get to the good ones. Early on, my approval rate for pitches was maybe 1 in 10, maybe. I want you to bring all your enthusiasm and all your energy and your refusal to take no for an answer. Many of your requests will get a no, and that's okay because that's how you get to the yes. I spent time booking for a morning show early in my career, and I lost count rather, of the number of times people just straight up hung up on me. And this was in the mid 2000s when you were calling landlines. Someday, if right now, if you lose the connection on a cell phone, you can lie to yourself and say they probably didn't hang up on me. Back then, you knew. You heard a click and a dial tone, and that was it. Listen, ours is a world that values relentlessness and determination. A stubbornness that drove your parents absolutely bonkers when you were toddlers, but that will serve you well in this industry. Joining this world means doing this work without fear or favor, and you are going to be doing it at a pivotal moment in world history. When I joined this world over 20 years ago, it was meant to be a pit stop between undergrad and law school. It was a 1 year fellowship at ABC News Nightline. I was hired by the one and only Tom Batag, to whom I am forever grateful for taking a chance on me back then. And I began my career in August of 2001. Weeks later, the 9/11 attacks happened, the world changed, and I never left this field. It was a time of enormous fear and uncertainty, and journalism was my way of making sense of the chaos, to build bridges between the us and the them narrative that was taking hold, and to add light, not heat, to the conversation. See, the thing is, usually at graduations, I talk about the real world that you're stepping into, but I know that none of you need to hear that. You have all been very much living in the real world your entire college careers. Your high school graduations were canceled in the pandemic. You spent your first year of college on Zoom calls. I'm so sorry. You watched the world turn out to march for Black lives. You're now watching wars around the world resonate right here at home, including on your own campus. You don't need me to tell you about covering history. I know that you're already living it. And I know that it feels like the world is on fire. I remember that's what it felt like when I started out too. The good news is, and there's always good news, is that you who have chosen this path, you are in a position to do something about it. This path that you've chosen as journalist is not a career, it is a calling. How you spend your days is how you live your life. And of the many ways that you could choose to spend those days, you have chosen to pursue the truth. And that today, amid all the chaos and the uncertainty, remains a noble and necessary pursuit. That is despite this feeling I know you all have that our industry is being hollowed out. Last year, an average of 2.5 local papers shuttered each week. Today, more than half of all counties in the US have either no local news source or only one remaining outlet. So, where's the good news, huh? Well, the good news is journalists don't give up, and we do not go away. We can be very annoying that way. Someone or the other has been predicting our demise since the earliest pen hit earliest paper, and they have yet to be proven right. Today, public media has stepped in to fill local voids. Digital outlets are popping up with local community newsrooms. Two of them just won Pulitzer Prizes for their work. And remember, in this line of work, there is no minimum age for success. Last year, the first ever college journalist won a George Polk Award. You all, every single one of you, have the means and the ability to tell stories of consequence right now. And your timing could not be better. You're stepping into a world, as you well know, in which facts are up for debate, in which some people out there will brand your work as fake news and will brand you an enemy of the state. There are more powerful and more prolific merchants of misinformation out there than ever before. These are forces armed with anger and ego, and they are unafraid to weaponize fear and lies for power. You are stepping onto the front lines of information warfare, but you are doing it armed with the exact same resilience and the same hope and the same dedication to the facts that got you through the last 4 years. You are not an untested bunch. You have proven yourselves time and again. You have risen to the challenges presented. And now it is time for you to rise again. Grads, this is the time to be brave. This is the time to ask tough questions. This is the time to confront ideas that you yourself may find uncomfortable with clear eyes and a ferocious sense of curiosity. More than anything, this is a time to care. Do not be afraid to care about the stories that you tell. Care about the facts, yes. Care about getting every last detail right, yes. Care about being fair and being truthful, not neutral. When I had the chance to write some of my very first TV scripts as a researcher at NBC, my early drafts came back to me with way more red ink than black. It was absolutely brutal. And the producer who was mentoring me at the time said, "Stop writing academic papers. Tell me a story." He knew that no one watching would care how much I knew until they knew how much I cared. You will find yourself filing FOIA requests and chasing officials for comment and cold calling person after person after person until anyone will talk to you. And when that person finally says yes, you have to treat that person's story with the same care that you would want yours to be treated. Empathy. Empathy, grads, is what will set your work apart. It will make it sing. It will give it heart, and it will keep you whole in a way that allows you to continue to do this work for the long haul, which is what we need you to do. Radical, relentless, unwavering empathy. For me, it's been a James Baldwin paragraph from an essay on the state of America at a time of an uninspiring field of candidates in the 1980 presidential race. And it goes like this, quote, "The children are always ours, every single one of them, all over the globe. And I'm beginning to suspect that whoever is incapable of recognizing this may be incapable of morality." When I was covering our government's family separation policy at the US southern border in 2019, that for me meant telling the story of 3-year-old Sophie, who was forcibly separated from her grandmother after crossing from Juarez to El Paso. It meant relentlessly calling every federal and local official I could think of worrying every single evening as I kissed my own kids goodnight who was tucking Sophie into bed. It meant following every twist and turn of her story until 7 weeks later, when I finally watched her reunited with her family. Covering the Israel Hamas war meant sitting around a kitchen table on a kibbutz going through family photos as Noam Perry tells me about her 79-year-old father Chaim, about his life, about his laughter, about the medical missions he used to drive for people in Gaza, how she's scared that he will not survive his time being held hostage by Hamas. It meant seeing my own family in hers, a daughter who loves her father dearly and just wants him home. It meant tracking down 20-year-old Shaima on the phone when we couldn't get inside Gaza. Shaima's life had gone from college student to fleeing airstrikes in a matter of minutes. It meant trying to understand what it's like to be on the cusp of the rest of your life and suddenly be reckoning with your own possible death. Or the story of 3-year-old Julia, whose medication for a rare disorder that's already nearly paralyzed her is running low, and who can't get cleared for evacuation as she and her family are trapped at the Rafah border. Asking myself, what would I do if that were my daughter? This world that you're going to be covering will force you again and again and again towards cynicism. Do not let it. Make a promise to yourself today, grads. Protect your empathy at all costs. Never ever forget that people are at the core of every single story that you're going to tell over your career. I'm going to end today as I began with a different kind of love story. I love this work. It's a joy and a privilege to be able to say that. I love this work, and I hope that you will find some way to love it as well. This work grants each of you one of the greatest privileges on this planet. You get to choose what stories are told. You are deciding what and who is remembered. Tell stories that matter. Tell them with empathy. Tell stories that can make a difference in someone's life, big or small. Tell stories you're going to be proud to stand by year after year after year. Tell stories worth remembering. Congratulations to the class of 2024 and good luck out there, grads. We need you.
Amna, thank you for joining us today. Please accept this token of our appreciation.
Associate Dean and Director of our Doctoral program, Dr. Sarah Ose, will assist Dean Lorente in presenting today's doctoral degree candidate, along with the chair of the Students' Dissertation Committee, Associate Dean Dr. Linda Steiner.
Vincent, will you please join me? Dinfin Malupi's dissertation, News of Sexual Violence, Assessing the Efficacy of Feminist Interventions on Journalistic Practices, sought to improve news coverage of sexual violence by examining pathways to better journalistic practices from a feminist perspective. Dinfin analyzed recommendations for better news coverage of sexual violence as articulated by feminist scholars, NGOs, and anti-gender violence activists. She then examined actual coverage of sexual violence by feminist news outlets in several countries to determine to what extent they adhere to those best practices, finding that they largely, but not entirely, did follow recommendations. Third, Dinfin conducted experiments in the United States and South Africa to test the effectiveness of feminist recommendations in altering audiences' attitudes towards victims and perpetrators. She found that news stories that center the account of survivors, use diverse sources, contextualize accusations by using statistics, and so forth, may indeed help audiences take seriously the problems of victim survivors, have greater empathy for victims, and be less likely to victim blame. So, Dinfin's dissertation offers recommendations for journalists, copy editors, and editors for how best to cover news about sexual violence. Dinfin Malupi has successfully completed all requirements for the degree of Doctor of Philosophy in Journalism Studies. It is my privilege to present Dinfin Malupi before Dean Lorente and the college's faculty as eligible to be invested with a doctoral hood, reflecting her earned degree of Doctor of Philosophy. Dean Lorente, in accordance with the recommendation of her examining committee, the journalism graduate faculty, and the graduate council, I request that you recognize Ms. Malupi for her accomplishments and welcome her to the honorable company of learned people.
I am pleased to accept the faculty's recommendation and am honored to welcome Dinfin Malupi to the ranks of students of the Philip Merrill College of Journalism who have received the highest degree awarded by this university.
would you please join me? Robin Masick Sundaramurthy's dissertation, Black Radio Ownership and the FCC's Failed Attempt to Diversify the Airways, assesses the outcomes of a Federal Communication Commission initiative that added approximately 700 new FM stations to small and medium-sized communities across the country in an effort to increase minority broadcast ownership at a time when African Americans owned less than 1% of U.S. radio stations. African Americans were shut out of radio station ownership due to both written and unwritten rules that excluded them from ownership. Spurred by the Kerner Commission report and Jimmy Carter, the president, the FCC implemented several programs aimed at diversifying ownership of radio. Robin reviewed more than 7,000 documents and interviewed more than 40 people for her dissertation, which highlights the stories of 8 African Americans who built and operated FM radio stations. These owners provided job opportunities and, in some cases, introduced new formats emphasizing community news and cultural affairs. By the mid 1980s, however, these efforts stalled. The courts, Congress, trade groups, and a new presidential administration chipped away at programs aimed at moving this issue forward. Robin Masick Sundaramurthy has successfully completed all requirements for the degree of Doctor of Philosophy in Journalism Studies. It is my privilege to present Robin Sundaramurthy before Dean Lorente and the college's faculty as eligible to be invested with the doctoral hood reflecting her earned degree of Doctor of Philosophy. Dean Lorente, in accordance with the recommendation of her examining committee, the journalism graduate faculty, and the graduate council, I request that you recognize Ms. Sundaramurthy for her accomplishments and welcome her to the honorable company of learned people.
I am pleased to accept the faculty's recommendation and am honored to welcome Robin Sundaramurthy to the ranks of students of the Philip Merrill College of Journalism who have received the highest degree awarded by this university.
So, Hannah, will you please join me? So, Hannah Nasrin's dissertation examines the critical relationship between journalists, climate activists, and the public conversation on climate change in the United States. It also explores how the climate activists and journalists collaborate to inform the public about the harsh realities of the climate crisis, but also she uncovers points of agreement and areas of tension between the two groups. So Hannah found that professional journalists explore solution-based reporting and collaboration. Meanwhile, her interviews with activists, including many youth activists, found that they are adopting journalistic tactics utilizing fact-finding and storytelling. So Hannah was particularly interested in how activists leverage technology to create knowledge and dissent, pushing for solutions. Ultimately, she proposes a framework for collaboration that involves exploiting digital tools for communication and public engagement. The model emphasized scientific evidence and media literacy, mutual trust, press freedom, and understanding the constraints posed by media ownership are also critical. Sohana Nasrin has successfully completed all requirements for the degree of Doctor of Philosophy and Journalism Studies. It is my privilege to present Sohana Nasrin before Dean Lorente and the college's faculty as eligible to be invested with the doctoral hood reflecting her earned degree of Doctor of Philosophy. Dean Lorente, in accordance with the recommendation of her examining committee, the journalism graduate faculty, and the graduate council, I request that you recognize Ms. Nasrin for her accomplishments and welcome her to the honorable company of learned people.
I am pleased to accept the faculty's recommendation and am honored to welcome Sohana Nasrin to the ranks of students of the Philip Merrill College of Journalism who have received the highest degree awarded by this university.
Associate Dean Dr. Linda Steiner will now assist Dean Lorente in presenting today's doctoral degree candidate, along with the student's chair of dissertation committee, Associate Dean Dr. Sarah Oates.
Sarah, will you please join me? Sarah's dissertation, entitled The Shift in News Media Framing of Violence Against Asians in America, the Vincent Chin Murder Case and Its Legacy, studied how the coverage of the events surrounding the murder of Chinese American Vincent Chin in 1982 was a turning point in the news framing of violence targeting Asian Americans. For her study, Sarah developed framing measurements that showed how advocacy groups and others were able to have a voice in the coverage, challenging the idea that Asian Americans were not subject to racialized violence. This dissertation makes a compelling argument to show how coverage of Chin's murder played an important role in drawing attention to anti-Asian racism as a widespread, persistent problem in America. Lessons learned in covering Chin helped to shape news framing of more recent cases of criminalized violence against Asians in the United States, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic and in the 2021 Atlanta spa shootings in which 6 Asian American women were murdered. Sarah Browning has successfully completed all requirements for the degree of Doctor of Philosophy in Journalism Studies. It is my privilege to present Sarah Browning before Dean Lorente and the college's faculty as eligible to be invested with the doctoral hood reflecting her earned degree of Doctor of Philosophy. Dean Lorente, in accordance with the recommendation of her examining committee, the journalism graduate faculty, and the graduate council, I request that you recognize Ms. Browning for her accomplishments and welcome her to the honorable company of learned people.
I am pleased to accept the faculty's recommendation and am honored to welcome Sarah Browning to the ranks of students of the Philip Merrill College of Journalism who have received the highest degree awarded by this university.
Frankie, will you please join me? Frankie's dissertation investigates a U.S.-China strategic narratives contest on COVID-19 travel policies in the international news environment. His work analyzes how stories about policies shape the identities of political actors. Frankie sampled more than 200,000 online news items and employed a human-in-the-loop machine learning process to identify relevant narratives. He then analyzed them qualitatively and statistically to examine the projection and reciprocation of strategic narratives. Findings suggest that stories in Chinese news were coherent but struggled to make sense of the rapid policy changes. U.S. strategic narratives were contested but flexibly told stories about travel restrictions and virus origin that manifested the lack of transparency from China. This dissertation shows how strategic narratives interact with the worldviews that help people interpret global crises through the news. His mixed methods approach demonstrated the potential for computational techniques to help researchers bring nuances into the analysis of large news data sets. Frankie Ho-Chin Wong has successfully completed all requirements for the degree of Doctor of Philosophy in Journalism Studies. It is my privilege to present Frankie Wong before Dean Lorente and the college's faculty as eligible to be invested with the doctoral hood reflecting his earned degree of Doctor of Philosophy. Dean Lorente, in accordance with the recommendation of his examining committee, the journalism graduate faculty, and the graduate council, I request that you recognize Mr. Wong for his accomplishments and welcome him to the honorable company of learned people.
I am pleased to accept the faculty's recommendation and am honored to welcome Frankie Ho-Chun Wong to the ranks of students of the Philip Merrill College of Journalism who have received the highest degree awarded by this university.
Associate Dean and the Director of Doctoral Program, Dr. Sarah Oates, will now assist Dean Lorente in presenting today's doctoral degree candidate, along with the Chair of the Students' Dissertation Committee, Dr. Susan Muller.
Thank you, Bobby, for joining me. Bobby Foster's dissertation was titled The Social Base of Memes, Expressions of Identity, Values, and Aesthetics in Queer Digital Folklore. Any of you ever venture into /fic Hogwarts on Tumblr? Any of you ever ventured into gay Twitter? Bobby's dissertation explored how LGBTQIA+ communities use memes to mark boundaries around conversations as varied as pop culture and politics. Memes such as #BeGayDoCrime, #NoCopsAtPride, and #PrideWasARiot. Her dissertation detailed how memes have allowed queer communities to discuss the meaning of pride, the complexities of rainbow capitalism, and queer identity. Drawing from cultural heritage studies, Bobby's dissertation demonstrated how memes operate as a form of digital folklore that allow marginalized communities of all kinds, race, sexual identity, you name it, to pass on cultural knowledge and shape shared spaces online. Bobby flew up to Maryland a few days ago, having just finished her first year as a tenure-track assistant professor at the School of Journalism and Strategic Media at the University of Arkansas, her home state, in Fayetteville. And I'm going to say one more word, which is that Fayetteville was ranked number 10 in U.S. News and World Report's 2023 Best Places to Live in the United States. Bobby Foster has successfully completed all requirements for the degree of Doctor of Philosophy in Journalism Studies. It is my privilege to present Bobby Foster before Dean Lorente and the college's faculty as eligible to be invested with a doctoral hood, reflecting her earned degree of Doctor of Philosophy. Dean Lorente, in accordance with the recommendation of her examining committee, the journalism graduate faculty, and the graduate council, I request you please that you recognize Ms. Foster for her accomplishments and welcome her to the honorable company of learned people.
I am pleased to accept the faculty's recommendation and am honored to welcome Bobby Foster to the ranks of students of the Philip Merrill College of Journalism who have received the highest degree awarded by this university.
Associate Dean Alexander Piles and Chris Harvey will now present the master's degree candidates. Each candidate will receive a lithograph and congratulations from Dean Lorente.
Will those candidates who are here to receive master's degrees from the Philip Merrill College of Journalism please rise and line up to approach the microphone? In accordance with the recommendation of the faculty of the college, please recognize these candidates who have successfully completed all requirements for the degrees of Master of Arts and Master of Journalism. Sununu Ba. Jamil Whitlow. Ryan Marcado. Dylan Manfred. Abby Ross. Abby Wallace. Avery Newport. Steph Quinn. Sapna Bansal. Fatima Hosseini. Lisa Wolfel. Matthew Schumer. Torrance Wendell Banks, Jr. Caroline Koutsos. Josh Davidsburg. Will those students who have completed the 4-course requirement for a graduate certificate of professional studies in multimedia journalism please stand to be recognized? Please remain standing until names have been called, and please hold your applause until the last name is called. Allison J. Dickinson, Georgia Zhang, Charles V. Glennon, Douglas E. Price. In accordance with the recommendation of the faculty of the college, please recognize these certificate candidates. Please recognize them.
Assistant Dean Joshua Madden and Chris Harvey will now present the undergraduate degree candidates. Each candidate will receive a lithograph and congratulations from Dean Lorente.
Will all undergraduate degree candidates please step forward? In accordance with the recommendation of the faculty of the Philip Merrill College of Journalism, please recognize these candidates for a Bachelor of Arts in Journalism. Aaron Wright. Daryl Perry. Aujane Bacon. Taylor Blanche Edwards. Jalen Mathis. Aaron Burnett. Matthew Watson. Sherwin Esguerra. Nyrene Esther Nadal Monforte. David Smith. Molly Samansky. Michaela Hansen. Kenan Greer. Kurt Massline. Erica Javadpour. Sydney Nauman. Ashley Abena Ankapong. Athena Matthews. Kira Bruno. Johanna Hani Wolkoff. Dylan Frank. Grace Walker. Margaret Scala. Fatima Yazdi. Monica Godnick. Lauren Reeder. Brian Melanson. Jacob Hunting. Nicholas Quintana. Aaron Arnstein. Michael Kirsting. Benji Ferraro. Matthew Christopher Fusillo. Andrew Chotis. Matthew Shea. Michael Rovetto. Rachel Hannah Zozabrato. Kinsey Gibb. Angelique Lynn Gingras. Parker Leipzig. Tyra Burris. Madeline Willoughby. Yesenia Montenegro. Jennifer Gable. Jack Perry. Matthew Levis. Matthew Kiris. Benjamin Reitman. Margaret Joyce McGuigan. Abby Weltman. Jack Rothenberg. Juliana Brannon. Hannah Marzalek. Kushbu Rathor. Anisha Hussein. Aya Hussein. Ilana Williams. Natalie Davis. Judith Altnew. Lexi Alpert. Nehru Dianeem. Joseph Beck. Lydia Hurley. Samantha Carey. Sarah Casuto. Ashlyn Schumer. Sydney Clapman. Gabrielle Ryan. Jessica Harden. Minnie Stevenson. Lucy Hubbard. Victoria Stavish. Christine Falevi. Lillian Howard. Frederick Wolf. Tolulape Ujai. Olivia Wolfson. Kayla Nazaire. Christy Nguyen. Lily Roser. Emily Jacob. Laura Wortman. Courtney Ruddy. Sydney Nicole Jackson. Cassie Peo. Josephine Jack. Joshua Banner. Tanner Malinowski. Brennan Stewart. Hayden Sweeney. Paige Billsbury. Maya Patel. Cecilia Schilling. Sarah Meter. Melanie Price. Nicholas Wolcott. Taylor Lyons. Joel Levtov. Olivia Janik. Bridget Byrne. Catherine Mahoney. Kara Thompson. Shifra Dyak. Christine Zhu. Hannah Sigler. Varun Shankar. Kirsten Hacker.
Let us congratulate today's graduates. Please be seated. Pretty good crew. It is an ancient university tradition to give an outstanding graduate, selected by our undergraduate students, the opportunity to address the commencement assembly on behalf of fellow students. This year, they have selected Kirsten Hacker. Kirsten is from Long Island, New York, and studied journalism with a minor in public leadership. During her first year, she started writing for the student publication Stories Beneath the Shell, eventually working her way up to become editor-in-chief in her junior and senior years. She also studied food writing in Rome for a summer. These experiences led her to internships at Montgomery County Media and Chesapeake Bay Magazine. During her senior year, she worked in the Capitol News Service Annapolis Bureau, covering the Maryland General Assembly for 2 semesters. This spring, Kirsten was among a group of students who, along with Annapolis Bureau Director Christy Parsons, secured an interview with Governor Wes Moore. She and several of her graduating classmates also covered the collapse of the Key Bridge in Baltimore. Kirsten's experience in Annapolis and love for local news inspired her career goal to cover state politics. Having seen what the Annapolis crew did this year, I have no doubt that we'll see Kirsten in a state house soon. After graduation, Kirsten will work as an intern for the Baltimore Sun. Please join me in welcoming Kirsten May Hacker.
Whew. Good morning, everyone. Welcome, graduates, family, friends, faculty, and staff. I can't believe commencement day has come, and I'm standing here before you today. To my fellow graduates, you should all be deeply proud of the amazing accomplishments that have led you to this point. So please, take a moment to congratulate yourselves. I want to start by reflecting on day 1. After taking online classes for a semester from home, the day I had been longing for had finally come. I had just gotten over a bout with COVID-19, and my dad and I loaded up our car to begin our 4-hour drive. I was excited to move in, but boy was I filled with nerves. So much so that as soon as we turned onto campus, I got sick in the parking lot next to the computer science building. And then again in lot 1. I thought maybe it was motion sickness, but I knew deep down I was just scared of the unknown. That night, I met my intended roommate to grab dinner. We decided to eat inside one of the dorm lounges, breaking the restrictions at the time. We then got written up on our first night on campus. That certainly didn't help my nerves. But slowly, I built a new home for myself. By day 7, I learned to stomach my nerves and put myself out there. By day 14, I learned how to write a lead, the all-important first sentence of a news story. By day 50, I learned to be grateful for the growth that could come out of darkness. By day 105, I learned how to make sacrifices to a turtle statue. More importantly, I learned that goodbyes are tough, but the anticipation of seeing each other again makes it all better. By day 160, I learned the value of hours-long dining hall conversations, even if they're over undercooked chicken. By day 210, I learned the meaning of true friendship. By day 260, I learned to carry a broadcast camera and tripod back to a dorm room at 1 a.m. during a heavy rain downpour. That's not fun. By day 350, I learned what it meant when people talked about the cliche of studying abroad to find yourself. By day 378, I learned that sometimes spontaneity is exactly what you need. By day 526, I learned to deal with rejection. No, not from going on a horrible first date, but from both sources and employers. By day 587, I learned that I love covering politics while working in one of the most supportive and inspiring newsrooms. By day 642, I learned to cherish every moment that brings joy. And sadness too. There's always something to gain from those feelings. And here I am on day 751, wondering how I'm ever going to leave this place. We're all about to embark on day one of a brand new life journey, and we have so much to learn. By no means has college taught me the secret to life too, but there's a few lessons I hope you'll carry with you. First, you're always where you need to be, even if it's not exactly where you want to be. It's hard not to go online and compare your situation to others, but you must remember, everyone takes their own path. The universe works in funny ways, but its timing is always right. I absolutely did not want to be at home during my first semester of college, but looking back, it's where I needed to be. I had more time to prepare myself, more support from my parents through the academic transition, and more time to spend with my family through a tough loss. And when I got to campus, I met a wonderful group of girls and we instantly became inseparable. I may not have met them otherwise. There is always value in the things we learn from the situations we're in, whether we want to be in them or not. So as we go through life, be reminded, you're always where you need to be. To trust in the world's timing, you must also trust yourself. My second lesson. We all studied journalism. We know about trust and distrust. You might not always be able to trust a source, but the least you can do is trust yourself. After all, you're stuck with the head on your two shoulders, and usually it knows what's right. So the best you can do is follow it. We'll spend the rest of our lives trying to complete a jigsaw puzzle of who we are. It might take a couple of tries to complete the picture, and the pieces of others around you may look different. But in the end, only you can find the perfect fit. It took me a long time to trust myself, whether it was approaching lawmakers while writing a story on deadline or making dreaded cold calls. Or the 8 years it took me to learn how to do a back handspring for cheerleading. Eventually, I trusted myself to do the skill, motivated by my coach's motto, "Nobody cares, work harder." For a while, I lived my life by that. Nobody cares, work harder. Most of it is true. If you put your head down and do the honest work, you'll get whatever you set your mind to. But the fact of the matter is that people do care a lot. And when you find the people who care the most, keep them close. And my last point, never take yourself too seriously. Have a little fun. The greatest gift in life is being able to enjoy it with the people around us. Find what fulfills you and keep chasing it. I want to close with a quote from the great artist Vincent van Gogh, who's long inspired my work. It reads, "For my part, I know nothing of any certainty, but the sight of the stars makes me dream." Even as truth-seeking journalists in our life's journey, we may never have all the answers, all the pieces to the puzzle. Nothing may be fully certain, and that's okay. But every once in a while, remember to stop and look up at the stars. Keep dreaming, class of 2024. Thank you.
Thank you, Kirsten. While all students work hard to earn their degrees, there are a few who deserve special recognition because of their accomplishments. In your program, you will find the names of this year's award recipients as recommended by members of our faculty.
Ira Chinoy will now recognize our outstanding undergraduate student for this commencement.
Will Angel Gingras please come forward? We couldn't miss you with that marvelous cap. It's pretty great. So I first got to know Angel this last semester when she took a course of mine on the past, present, and future of emerging media. And I could see right away her intelligence and also her willingness to jump right into class discussions. This is what a professor needs, is somebody willing to break the ice in class. I'm grateful for that. She worked hard and she was really outstanding in every way. Once I had a look at her resume, I shouldn't have been surprised by any of that. For starters, one challenging major was not enough for her. She decided to do two of them, the other one being in history, and she recently completed an honors thesis on the British press in that fraught period leading up to World War II. Angel made exemplary use of her time at Maryland. She covered the Maryland legislature in the Capitol News Service capstone and also the business beat. And she was a reporting intern with our Howard Center for Investigative Journalism. She had internships off campus too. One of these was with the Washington Diplomat, where she was not only an intern, but over a 2-year period, she moved up to be associate editor. Not bad. Angel was one of the top finishers in the Hearst Explanatory Writing Competition. And this semester, she was awarded a prestigious scholarship by the American News Women's Club to continue her studies. She's going to do that in a master's program in international journalism at the City University of London. That's right, London. Her record of leadership is wonderful. She's, a former leader in the Honors Global Communities here and also the national student chapter in the National Press Photographers Association. And as you might expect, Angel has a life outside academia and journalism. She's an accomplished tap dancer and the leader of a troupe on campus that did 6 performances this year. I don't know where she finds the time for that, but it reminds me of that saying, if you want to get something done, ask a busy person. So I reached out to 3 of my colleagues who have had her in class to see what they would say. No surprise. Tom Rosensteel said her final project was, and I'm quoting, powerful, eloquent, and thoughtfully original. He added, she brings that originality of purpose to everything she has done in 2 classes, just the authenticity that makes me feel journalism is in good hands. Adrian Flynn was her bureau director in the Annapolis Capitol News Service Bureau in the fall. And this is what she said. She goes above and beyond on every assignment, and she does that with a winning smile, sunny attitude, and eagerness to do more. She's indomitable in only the nicest way. And she did that capstone again in the spring, kind of unusual. And so she did again, and Christy Parsons was her bureau director this time, and she said this. Angel approaches every story like it is her joy and privilege, whether she's the one writing it or not. She's fearless about approaching sources and endlessly curious about what they might tell her. The future belongs to journalists who come to work with this kind of competence and pureness of heart. So Angel, congratulations and good luck. I know we will all be proud to say we knew you when, and this is for you. Okay, congratulations.
Associate Dean Alexander Piles will now recognize our outstanding master's student for this commencement.
Will Sapna Banzo please join me on the stage? Sapna switched careers to become a journalist, and the profession is already better for it. I've often enjoyed chatting with Sapna about our adopted hometown of Baltimore. And we worked on some of the same stories, but I'm really sad to say that I did not have her in any of my classes. But not to worry. The faculty members who did teach this outstanding graduate had plenty of nice things to say. Sapna was a star from the start. Principal lecturer Chris Harvey, who teaches our first reporting courses, places Sapna among the very best students she's taught in 3 decades at Merrill. She said Sapna is a dogged reporter, a strong writer, and a tireless worker. She is adept with a spreadsheet as she is with crafting a strong narrative. Harvey also noted those skills earned her opportunities. Sapna had work published by the Baltimore Banner in her first semester, snagged a summer internship at the Philadelphia Inquirer, and followed that with an internship at the Washington Post last fall. Sapna, a Howard Fellow, also worked on ambitious projects with the Howard Center for Investigative Journalism and Shirley Povich Center for Sports Journalism. Kathy Best, director of the Howard Center, called Sapna a triple threat. She is a gifted reporter who knows how to win the trust of people she is talking to and knows the questions to ask to take the story to the next level. She's a lovely writer who makes the facts jump off a page, and she is a talented data journalist who is adept at getting the data to guide her to the best story. She also works hard, collaborates well, and is always cheerful. Mark Hyman, director of the Povich Center, said Sapna is smart, relentless, eager to learn, and has a ridiculous work ethic. He especially admires her critical thinking skills and knack for finding the right people to interview, asking the right questions, and getting to the heart of complicated issues. Sapna finished her coursework here by covering the Maryland General Assembly and Governor Wes Moore for our Capitol News Service. Christy Parsons, director of the CNS Annapolis Bureau, was especially impressed with Sapna's tenacity and sensitivity as a reporter under difficult circumstances. Parsons said, Sapna was one of the first journalists on the ground after the Key Bridge collapse, and she delivered some of the best reporting when it was still a breaking story. But then she went back and back and back again in search of the people most deeply affected. Was this fun for her? No, it was hard, and it was painful, for this is her community, and the people she talked to were suffering. But she wanted badly to understand the story, to face it firsthand, and to share it with everyone who would take the time to read, watch, and listen. These are the markings of a good journalist and of a good human being. I'm proud that we here at Merrill have had the privilege to help launch her on this path. That was all, Christy. I could say more, but I think you get it. Congratulations, Sapna.
Chris Harvey will now recognize this commencement's Kappa Tau Alpha awardees and top KTA awardee.
I am really pleased to present these KTA awards to students from this graduating class more than 40 years after I was honored with one from this very college. Kappa Tau Alpha is the nationally recognized honor society for those pursuing scholarship in the fields of journalism and mass communication. The society was founded in 1910 at the University of Missouri. The University of Maryland chapter has been recognizing the academic excellence of its students for 63 years. The following students have agreed to be recognized today for their outstanding academic achievements, earning grade point averages from an impressive 3.9 to a perfect 4.0. That was a huge range there. Will the following new members please come to the stage and line up beside each other to my left between the table and the podium to receive your Kappa Tau Alpha certificates. And please remain on the stage after receiving your certificate so we can get a group photo. Will Samantha Carey come up?
Shifra Dayak, Yesenia Montenegro, Minnie Stevenson, and Hannah Ziegler. Stay right there. So you've already applauded. Thank you very much for doing so. Right now, what we'd like to do is recognize Hannah Ziegler as Capitow Office Top Award winner. Hannah, come on over here. Come on over here, Hannah. Hannah earned a perfect 4.0 while juggling numerous internships and journalism jobs. She finishes this year as the top editor of the Campus Daily, the Diamondback, after completing summer internships the last 2 years at major news publications in Atlanta and New York. She heads in June to what she's described as her dream beat at her dream paper, covering business as an intern at the Washington Post. Please accept this plaque, Hannah, in recognition of your amazing work. And everyone can sit now. Thank you so much.
On June 28, 2018, a gunman armed with a shotgun assassinated 5 members of the staff at the Annapolis Capital Gazette newspaper. Merrill College and the Capital Gazette have long had very close ties. Philip Merrill, for whom our college is named, was the longtime owner of the newspaper. Many of our alumni have started their careers in Annapolis. 3 of the murdered people had special ties to Merrill College. Editorial writer Gerald Fishman graduated from Merrill College in 1979. Sports journalist John McNamara graduated in 1983. And editor, reporter, and columnist Rob Hyacin was an adjunct lecturer who taught reporting at Merrill College. To honor the Capital Gazette victims, the college presents 3 awards. The Gerald Fishman Award for News Commentary and Criticism honors Gerald Fishman, who was a thoughtful, tenacious opinion writer whose commentary on the Capital Gazette's opinion pages year after year helped clarify issues for Annapolis citizens. The Fishman Award goes to Joseph Isaac Bark. Joey, please join me at the podium. The John McNamara Sports Writing Award honors one of Maryland's most beloved sports writers, John McNamara, who is remembered especially for his coverage of Terp basketball. The McNamara Writing Award goes to Varun Shankar. Varun, please join me at the podium. The Rob Hyacin Adjunct Faculty Award recognizes the role that our adjunct lecturers, many of whom have full-time jobs in newsrooms across the region, have in preparing our students to be journalists. This year's Rob Hyacin Adjunct Faculty Award goes to Clarence Williams. Clarence has covered crime and other breaking news for more than 20 years. When the rest of us are sleeping, he's on the streets at night as the police reporter for the Washington Post. He's been pepper sprayed at protests, witnessed martial law curfews in Baltimore, covered the crime scene of a DC sniper victim, uncovered the story of a deaf man wrongly jailed for 22 months in the district, and covered countless other stories throughout the region. But in Knight Hall, Clarence is a Journalism 320 adjunct, teaching our second level reporting students how to cover City Hall, the courts, and of course, crime. Our students' words in course evaluations will tell you all you need to know about Clarence. Quote, Professor Williams is one of the most caring professors I have had, one said. Quote, Professor Williams himself was the most impactful part of the course, as he remained very open and helpful throughout the process, another said. And quote, this is the most I've ever learned in a journalism class. Having beat assignments and just being forced to get sources was really helpful because it showed me I could actually do it, a third said. I could go on and on and on. Clarence, please join me at the podium. This one's going to be hard. I'm a bit of a crier. If we're lucky over the course of a long career, we get to work with a few people who teach us and leave a lasting impression on the way we do our work. I've been fortunate to have had a number of those people in my life. One of them is Ira Chinoy. For more than 2 decades, Ira has been a constant source of mentoring and inspiration for faculty and staff members, and for countless students who forever get to walk the world saying they took classes from Professor Chinoy. Like me, many of them will tell you that they wouldn't be where they are today if not for Ira patiently listening and offering to help. And for that amazing work, the university will honor Ira for the lasting impression he made at Merrill by naming him an associate professor emeritus. Ira, it is an understatement to say that we will miss you. It is obvious to say you left us better than you found us. Please do not be a stranger. Merrill College is your home, and it is home to many of us because of you. Thank you, my friend. We couldn't fit all the notes on one, so we had to do two. All right, now a couple things before we go. First, thank you to Sarap Rada, Natalie Kosner, and Josh Land for their hard work behind the scenes. Thank you also to broadcast lecturer Nathan Stevens, who worked with students Chris Barelick, Jenna Bloom, and Edward Riscala. to provide live streaming of today's ceremony. To our graduates, and a little small point of personal privilege. You are my first You are my first class as dean. You're my first graduating class. You will always be my first graduating class as dean. That'll never stop being special. But you are special because of the work you put in and the care you put into that work and into each other. You arrived here in the midst of a worldwide pandemic and a contentious national election. You've watched the world go to war in Ukraine and the Middle East and elsewhere. You've watched as the news industry and our greater society have struggled with the forces of mis and disinformation that are eroding our trust in institutions and in each other. And yet you've persevered. You've let us know when we could be better, all the while working to be better yourselves. You've reached into the local community, mentoring high school students and serving others in need. And you've produced incredible journalism from the State House in Annapolis to the halls of Congress in Washington, from NASCAR races to the Super Bowl, from campus stories to the Key Bridge in Baltimore. You were there learning and also serving the people of Maryland and beyond. You've also produced incredible investigative work about the dangers of youth football, about people who've died at the hands of police, and about the costs of fixing our public education system, to name a few. Whether you go on to become a journalist or enter another field, we know you will make us proud because you will use what you've learned to lead and teach others. You have writing, editing, multimedia, and data skills that are sorely needed in our society. And you have the critical thinking skills and ethical compass to use them for good. Remember, our job is to find the truth as best we can and then tell it to others as best we can. Then come back tomorrow and do it again. That is a service to your communities. It is a service to whatever field you enter. It is a service to the very idea of democracy. Thank you to the parents and family members here today who entrusted us with the education of your pride and joy. We take that responsibility seriously. And thank you to the faculty and staff who worked so hard. Will students join me in giving the parents, staff, and faculty a hand? You will be hearing from us in the future, so I hope you attend our events and reunions. Please fill out the graduate surveys. You'll be helping us make things even better for future students. And please step up when we need help with another spectacular high school senior, just like you, who needs to hear a little bit of encouragement from a successful alum before committing to Merrill College. If you're able, please contribute to our scholarship funds. Many of you benefited from scholarship donations from alumni. It'll be your chance to give back. And tonight, when I call in your class to stand and be recognized at main commencement, please make lots of noise. Remember, you're my first class. Finally, I want to say it's okay to be nervous or a little scared. I wake up every day with at least a little bit of imposter syndrome, some days more than others.